In today's show, we continue our season preview series talking Jrue Holiday. What will Jrue bring to Portland in his first year with the Portland Trail Blazers? Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen. Coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we are continuing our season preview series. We'll take a look at everybody on the roster, giving you a brief but thorough look at what they will bring to the Blazers this season. How we do these is we look back to look forward. We talk about what they did last year, how they arrived on the Trailblazers. We'll talk best and worst case scenarios, and then we'll close out the show talking about our reasonable expectations for this upcoming year, plus the role we expect each player to play. If you've missed any of these and you're a YouTube viewer, there's a playlist. You can check Scoot Henderson or Denny Avdia's preview videos. And today we're talking all things Jrue Holiday. If you're an audio listener, just search Season Preview in your podcatcher of choice, whatever you listen to podcasts in, and you will find them all. They're all labeled as such. Let's talk about Jrue. Let's talk about how he ended up here in the first place. The Blazers agreed to trade for Jrue Holiday a second time, this time agreeing to send 2 second-round picks and Avery Simons to the Boston Celtics in exchange for Jrue. Only the trade was reported and agreed upon a couple weeks before it could be officially finalized. For financial reasons, the Blazers had to wait until the moratorium was over and we'd entered the new league year. And so when it finally became official, the Blazers had gotten a closer look at Jrue Holiday's medicals, and they decided to amend the trade offer to the Celtics. They weren't going to be sending those second-round picks any longer. The Celtics agreed, and instead it became a player-for-player swap, albeit a slightly more ominous one, considering you're landing a 35-year-old guard who you looked under the hood and said, yeah, we should pay less for this. But it's just Simons for Jrue Holiday straight up. Jrue arrives with 3 years left on his contract, although one of them is technically a player option, but it's like $37 million when he's 37 years old. He's going to pick that one up. So 3 years, over $100 million remaining on his contract. A big old deal for a player that has been highly productive. It's just he had a down year last year. And last year with the Celtics, he appeared in 62 games, averaged 11.1 points, 4.3 boards, 3.9 assists, shot 44.3% from the free throw line, or from the field, including 35.3% from the three-point line and 90.9% from the free throw line. Played 30.6 minutes a night and started every game he appeared in. He missed some time, though. 62 games, which means, if you're counting at home, he missed 20 regular season games. The most consistent thing that he missed time with was a right shoulder injury, although he did miss a little bit of time with a pinky injury. And then in the playoffs, he was slowed by a hamstring ailment. He dealt with a bunch of things. Then he turned 35 in June. Holiday has been, over the last half decade, straight up one of the best players in the sport, right? He's been just very, very good. Over the last decade, I think he's been the best guard defender in the league. But he had an admittedly down season last year. I mentioned the numbers, 11, 4, and 4. But like in his prior 4 seasons, prior to the 24-25 year with Boston, he gets traded to the Bucks in the 2020-21 season. They win the championship. He's first team all defense. He averaged 17, 4, and 6. The following year, second team all defense, 18, 4.5, and 7. Then the third year, he makes an all-star team at age 32. He's first team all defense. He averages 19, 5, and 7.5 for the Bucks. He's excellent. The following summer, he gets traded in part of the Damian Lillard deal and then shipped to Boston, lands with the Celtics for the 23-24 season. They win the title. The teams that trade for Jrue Holiday win championships. Obviously, the Blazers will do that, and they'll do that because he's going to bounce back from last year. A couple different things with Jrue. One, over the last, so 4 consecutive years, first team, second team, all defense. He also shot he's a career 37% three-point shooter, but shot 39% in his first season in Milwaukee, then 41, then 38%, then 42.9% in his first year in Boston when they won the championship. And he was really, really good during the playoffs with the Celtics too. Like he was really, really good. And then last year he dips down to 35.3% from three, below his career averages, below the league average, and below what he had been as he's turned himself into an excellent shooter. He's an excellent defender and excellent shooter. That's what he's been. He just had a down year. Not only was it the worst, shooting efficiency that he's had, all things considered, points per shot, true shooting percentage, however you want to calculate it, but the worst over the last half decade, over the last 5 seasons. But it was also like the perception is that he slipped on defense. Defense is a little bit harder to sort of totally calculate. It's easier to know it when you see it. Jrue wasn't eligible for any of the all-defense teams this year because he only played in 62 games and he didn't hit that number of 65. But I think the sort of general perception, reading about him, listening to Locked On Celtics and reading the sort of larger national thoughts on Jrue is that people think he took a step back on defense last year, or at least slipped a little bit and wasn't, like, hey, this is one of the 10 best defenders in the league. This dude can guard freaking anybody. And I think, at this stage of his career, he's you don't want him to guard super fast point guards. At one point, he just like swallowed Damian Lillard hold like Geppetto, but like he's not that anymore. He is not a whale that is coming to swallow, I guess, your stepdad. Is that what Geppetto is to to Pinocchio? But like he's still like he can guard up 2s and 3s because he's so smart and so strong. Like he's still a very good defender. It's just like, is he at the level he has been? He comes here on a down year, but the Blazers are banking on him being much better than his down season. You don't trade for him, and particularly initially say, Anthony Simons and picks, this is the guy we want. This is like very clearly just based on how the trade went down. This is a dude they really coveted. So what I want to talk about in the second segment is best and worst case scenarios for Jrue, because, there is a world in which Jrue Holiday has this epic bounce back season, but there's a world where he doesn't. And so let's set the polls. This is what we do in the second segment. Join me there, won't ya? First, though, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by the good folks over there at 5 Hour Energy. It is time to fuel up and turn up with the 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. It's perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. So whether you're out on the course or you just need a little extra push to power through your day, 5 Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. So I'm a bad golfer. If I'm out there, I'm going to try to enjoy myself, but I'm also going to need a little extra boost because I'm going to be out there on the golf course for a long time. It's going to take me a lot of strokes to get there, and 5 Hour Energy will help me when I'm shooting a snowman on 7, on 8, on 9, and 11. So if you need to fuel up, or you're just an excellent golfer that wants a little bit of focus with a classic taste, well, why not grab a 5 Hour Energy? Because golf is all about good times with good people and now good flavors. The grape, ginger, lime flavor of 5 Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the bev cart. Now you can amp up and have even more fun. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the U.S. Tee up that trip. Visit 5HEWin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. It ends October 25th. All right. So what we do in these season previews is we talk best and worst case scenarios. These are best case scenarios best case scenarios within reason. So, if guys aren't going to chase down all-star bids and win MVPs, we're not talking all-star bids and MVPs. We're talking reasonable best case scenarios, and we're talking worst case scenarios without injury. What happens in between the lines? Because we're not talking about dudes' bodies breaking down. So what is the best case scenario for Jrue Holiday? is that he bounces back after a down season in Boston and gets back to his career average from 37%, and his usage ticks up as his role shifts from sort of spacing wing to a much-needed creator on the Trailblazers. The defense that has pushed Jrue to a borderline Hall of Fame career shows up in a hurry, and he is the ultimate floor-raising, ceiling-scraping teammate. The best case scenario for Jrue Holiday is he's the guy that unlocks both the Blazers' young guards in Shaedon Sharpe and Scoot Henderson, no matter whom he is paired with. And he is the third ball handler in the starting lineup that allows Denny Avdia to not have so much responsibility, gives a little bit of rest for Scoot Henderson when he needs it, or Shaedon Sharpe should he need to. Plus, he's the perfect vet to throw into bench lineups and the type of do-everything role player that made Jrue the secret championship ingredient in his two most recent stops. The best case scenario is that Jrue Holiday, who has been one of the best role players, one of the best plug-and-play, win at a high-level dudes that you could add to a basketball team over the last 5 to 7 seasons, is one of the best win at a high-level plug-and-play dudes when he plays for the Trailblazers this year. What's the worst case scenario for Jrue Holiday? It's that he's 35 years old. It's that what looked like a down season in Boston last year turns out to be the beginning of a down slope. And because he's Jrue Holiday, the worst case scenario is that potential Hall of Famer, who the front office very specifically targeted to be a roster elevating presence, ends up being someone who is an older guard, getting a little more tick and a little more opportunity than would typically be granted for someone of a similar ilk. And more importantly, the worst case scenario is that player that is on the downslope and getting a little bit more opportunity specifically blocks some chances for the Blazers' young guards and the Blazers' just rotation in general. And that the worst case scenario for Jrue Holiday is that he's more crowding than complement. And when you get to the end of the year, the worst case scenario is we talk about Jrue Holiday and time. I mean that in two ways. The worst case scenario is we talk about time based on how much time Jrue Holiday has been on this earth. He'll celebrate his 36th birthday in June 2026. And if we talk about age and time and father time and mother nature, that's the worst case scenario for Jrue Holiday. But it's also time in terms of contract length. The worst case scenario is that when we discuss Jrue Holiday, it also includes, well, he's under contract for 2 more years. Well, they owe him this much money in the 26-27 season. There's a lot of time left under this Jrue Holiday commitment. The worst case scenario is we're talking about Jrue Holiday in the future as a burden and not in the present as a salve. I think the point with these, I know the point with these best and worst case scenarios is that everybody lands in the middle. That's the idea, right? Is that I kind of plan these out, and the idea is that these are the poles. Hey, here's your best case scenario. If everything goes right, Jrue Holiday is awesome. And I think there is a world in which Jrue Holiday, because he's not really a point guard, like at some point he was sort of this like pick and roll partner with Anthony Davis on some pretty good teams. They beat the snot, but it's like even then they added Rondo to the mix. Like he's never been like this pure point. He's been like a true combo-y guard, but had some like pick and roll juice at some point in his career. Then he's kind of morphed into this sort of like defensive stopper, defensive ace, off ball, like player. Like first with, Jrue and Chris Middleton, Giannis and Chris Middleton in Milwaukee need just like one more dude who could go get buckets when you need it and is just an elite playmaker and allows you to shoot and play defense and just like be the clear third best, and when you need him, second best player on a team that wins at a high level, and he can kind of scale and play up, like be a chameleon, play a bunch of different roles. And then in Boston, it was just like he's much more off the ball stuff, but he just shot so freaking well his first year there, and it's like and defended everybody and allowed them to play this switchable, crazy defense. Like there's a world in which best case scenario is that he's that, except he's that in just like a different scale, right? The Blazers aren't going to be winning a championship next year, spoiler, but like that he does play so well next to Scoot, right? Because he can play off the ball and he can be a 2 guard and he can guard up and he guard on the wing, and you're really comfortable in playing there. And then you can play him next to Shaedon Sharpe, and so he can be like nominally a 1, right? He can guard a tougher defensive assignment who's maybe is a little bit quicker, who you don't want Shaedon Sharpe to guard, but like while Sharpe can operate a bunch on the ball, and you let him, if you want him to be an off ball guy, because Sharpe is a really devastating cutter coming off curls, getting to the rim, like then you do have another player who can competently handle the ball. And that Holiday, with that ability to be a shooter and an off-ball player and toggle on the ball and be defensive versatility, he fits into the identity really well, and he's really useful for Denny as in those ways. He helps the young bigs. He's also just like a pro, right? And he teaches guys how to handle themselves, because what Jrue Holiday is some dude who's probably going to make the Hall of Fame, and I'm not sure he's ever been the best player on his team, right? Like, I'm not sure he's ever had a single season where Jrue Holiday's the best player on his team, and yet he's maybe the best defensive player. He's probably the best defensive guard of his generation. He has been the secret ingredient on championship level teams. He's been an Olympian. He's been a winner and an all-star and all of these things. Like, he's someone who can show young guys the ropes of how to maximize your strengths, and then how to grow with those, how to adapt, how to truly be adaptive. And that is the skill of staying in the league and having longevity and playing such a long time and being, he's the freaking 09 draft. This is a dude who's been around, right? And made it through, made it out of Philly with when the process decided it was time for him to leave, and made it out of New Orleans when AD decided it was his time to leave, and then kind of got kicked out of Milwaukee and then kicked out of Boston, right? As these teams kind of shuffle past championship iterations and next, and he's still around, still going to be counted on, right? There's a best case scenario where he's that. But I do think, and I don't mean to say this sort of glibly, right? There is a worst case scenario where he's just old for a basketball player. There's just a truth that the miles, the age, the years, all of those things catch up. And that Jrue he's just older, and he just isn't as good as he once was. And I think there's a world where he's this perfect additive piece. And there's also a world in which he is part of the plan, even though he shouldn't be. And this feels a little bit insulting, right? But there's a world in which he feels a lot like Jeremy Grant last year, where it was Grant's going to play and he's not terrible, but boy, does he have some negative moments. And wow, there aren't that many hey, Jeremy for sure helped in this regard. And now Jrue does more stuff. He's a much better player. He's a much better player than Jeremy Grant's ever been. And he's more versatility and all these things, right? But I do mean this, where it's, hey, because of your paycheck and because of your because of your presence in the league and how long you've been in the league and the sort of the respect that you command, you're going to play even when maybe it doesn't make sense that you get these minutes. There's a world when that happens. And I think for Jrue, and this is I'm getting back 5 minutes later after my original point. That's the nature of the pod, right? But the idea is everybody lands in the middle with best and worst case scenarios. Jrue, because of his age and because of the peaks that he's been at in the past, he probably has a wider range than most guys on the roster. His best case scenario is oh, he's really good. That's helpful. He's a really good basketball player. And his worst is dang. You start to feel okay, you start talking about time, right? Time on earth, time left in the contract. And I think more so than other players, Holiday has a wide range of outcomes because of how good we know he can be and how cruel time is. Let's talk about expectations and role. I think I know how Jrue's going to start the season, and I'll share my expectations, what I think his role will be to begin the year. Join me in that third segment. We'll talk about just that. First, though, I want to tell you about my favorite jeanswear brand, DUER. They're making perfect pants. I've been rocking their relaxed taper denim, on the daily here. DUER jeans are just wonderful. They got 5 times the stretch of traditional denim, so they feel stretchy without looking stretchy. They look like jeans. In fact, they look nice. They look like you can wear them to the office. You can wear them to a nice night out. You can wear them to, to go have fun and look good, but you can also just be functional in them. They're made to move, to do stuff, to live your life. Plus, they're made with Cool Max that regulates your body temperature and wicks moisture, so they keep you cool and comfortable as the temperature changes. DUER combines classic jeans wear style with the kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear. It's the best of both worlds. In fact, if you're watching the YouTube channel right now, I'm rocking some other items. I'm rocking the no sweat moleskin button down from DUER because they don't just make comfortable, functional jeans. They make a whole style that you can get after. It's time to upgrade to the most comfortable pants and the most comfortable clothes. Get your own DUER jeans and your own DUER clothing today. I know you'll love them. And DUER are opening a new store right here in Portland on Northwest 23rd, opening later this September at 820 Northwest 23rd Avenue. The new era in denim is here in Portland. And if you mention my promo code Locked On Portland in store, you get 15% off your first order, or check them out online at shopduer.com/locked on Portland for 15% off. That's shopduer.com/locked on Portland. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. Still listening to Locked On Blazers. Still talking Jrue Holiday. What we do to close the show here is talk reasonable role and expectations. So, if everybody's supposed to land in the middle of the polls, what do we expect for Jrue? Let's start with role first. I think Jrue Holiday starts. I really think, I don't think that they traded for him to be a bench player. Now, he might not play a ton of minutes. I think comparing he played 30 minutes with the Celtics last year. It's just it's like a context that doesn't matter. But with that said, he did play 30. No, just kidding. I think he is a 28 to 32 minute a night starter. He might play a little bit less because he's a little bit older. It might make sense to, if you're trying to be really good, to try to limit Jrue Holiday's minutes to 27, 28 during the regular season so he can turn up and play when it matters. Although the Blazers are unlikely to be deep into the playoffs type of team, so they might need to turn up and play Jrue Holiday when it matters in freaking January and February in order to make the playoffs or make the postseason or make a postseason push, period, right? That might be their most important games, quite frankly, is to get there, just because of, we'll see how it works. But I think he starts. I think they traded for him. Very clearly they wanted him, right? When you trade, say, the trade they made with the Celtics saved the Celtics something like $40 million in luxury taxes, plus future luxury taxes because Jrue Holiday's under contract for this year, for the following season, and has a player option for the one after that. The 27-28 season. His contract runs through 26-27, and then he has a player option for the year after that. So it's he's going to be around. And when you trade, he was going to cost the Celtics all this money. And so when the Blazers said, okay, we're going to send you picks and Anfernee Simons to kind of facilitate you saving all this money, it's clear the Blazers wanted him, right? And it's not a surprise. The Blazers wanted him. This is the type of player they value with the defensive versatility. I think they were missing some of sort of that veteran leadership, the gravitas. He adds some sort of desperately needed soft stuff to the locker room, that type of leadership position that they were missing. Hard to know whether Jrue will fit into that comfortably, but certainly he fits the bill, right? From the outside looking in, he's exactly the type of player they needed. The functionality of it matters much more about people than about personalities, right? We'll see if it all meshes. But he seems to check a lot of boxes for them. So I think he's going to play and start. He might not start the entire season, but I imagine Jrue Holiday is your game one starter. I would be pretty stunned if he's not your game one starter. I think, and if you're listening to the show, you probably have heard me say this before, thanks for listening, that I think there's 4 starting spots locked down. Jrue, Denny, Tumani, and Donovan Clingan. That's Tumani Kamara, Denny Avdia, and Donovan Clingan alongside Jrue Holiday. I think there's a question who the 5th starter is. My guess would be that it's Scoot Henderson, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's either Shaedon Sharpe or Jeremy Grant in that spot. Jrue is a chameleon. He will fit in and just be the 5th starter and whatever they need him to be in that role. But I think there is that's the role he's going to play. And my guess early in the season, he's a 30 some minute a night, 28 to 32 minute a night starting guard on this team. You don't really want him to guard point guards, but when you have Toumani Camara, it allows you to kind of put him on whoever needs to be the main focus and set your defense behind him. Having Jrue and Denny and Klingon behind Toumani, that is a good defensive team. Like the Blazers have a chance with Jrue elevating them to be a very, very good defensive team. And so my expectations are for Jrue is like, I don't think he's terrible. I don't even think last year he was that bad. I just think he was worse than he's been. And when good players get a little bit worse, it's more pronounced, right? It's like, oh yeah, you were one of the best players in the league. You were, I don't know. I did yesterday's show was all player rankings, so I have player rankings in my head, but it's like, you were something like the 30th best player in the NBA, and now you're the 50th best player in the NBA or whatever, and it just feels more pronounced. Like he was worse, right? But some of it is shooting, some of his usage, like his usage was, he had the lowest usage rate of any season of his career. He did a little bit less on the court, and then he also missed time with injuries. If he's healthy and he is a decent facsimile of what he's been over the last 5 years, he's so helpful. And I expect that, age is going to come for us all, right? But I don't think Jrue's at the cliff. But I do think there is a world in which the cliff is coming just because he's 35 years old and he's played a lot of NBA seasons and the mileage matters at some point. And usually aging is unkind. You don't usually get like a slow ramp out of the league. Usually you get bounced down a bunch of steps. And you're like, oh, dang. I wish that had been an easier sort of exit. I don't necessarily think Jrue is like washed, but I do think there is, I will be paying attention to how impactful he can be at his peaks and then how often they show up, because I bet his peaks will still be awesome. But if his peaks are once a week, twice a month, that's an issue. If he plays like, oh yeah, how awesome is it to have a level of defender like that, 3 out of the 5 games a week? They'll be in business. I also think he's a smart enough basketball player, particularly on the defensive end, to really be useful, even as his physical tools to deteriorate. Pattern recognition, player tendency recognition, fast hands, smart brain, like fast hands, fast brain, even as your feet slow down. I think he'll be a really useful defender. I think Jrue is going to be helpful. My question is kind of like, what level of help? I also think like he's strength on strength. Like the Blazers were a good defensive team last year and he brings more of that. So I think he fits in really easily, but I don't think he answers some of their challenges necessarily, which is like shot creation, somebody who can get all the way to the rim and like true high level shooting. He hasn't been a really high volume shooter in a long time. He's not like a put the ball in his hands, drive to the rim type of thing. But there is a world in which he just like shoots his career average 37% from 3. And it's like, oh yeah, he rocks. My expectation is that Jrue Holiday for most of this season is a very useful part of this team. Very useful part of this team. And I bet he starts right away. That's my expectations. Beyond that, the next 2 seasons after this one, then I think it does that's when you start to talk about time more, because 36, 37, years 16, 17, get deep into it. At some point, it catches up for all of us. That's going to do it for today's show. A little bit of housekeeping. If you're listening to Wednesday's program, I appreciate you. We're back 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts. If you are new to the program, thanks for listening. However you listen to this, share it with a friend. But here's how the show works typically. The audio will go up the night before the show comes out on YouTube, 8 a.m. Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. The audio typically will go up the night before, sometime between 9 and 11 p.m., depending on about when I record this. This one will probably be going up in about the 9:30 range, but based on when I'm recording it. So that is what to expect. 5 days a week, I'm not a crazy hot take guy, but I'll bring you my strong opinions. I'll do it every day. I'll try to keep it interesting. I'll bring on some guests as we kind of get rolling back here. The second week of September, and kind of the rest of my media colleagues are back rolling again too. I'm going to get some guests on. We will get it going into the season. It should be a whole bunch of fun. So do me a favor, however you're listening to this program, share it with someone who also likes the Trailblazers. Say, hey, I always listen to the Locked On Blazers, or this is my first ever time listening to Locked On Blazers, and I liked it, and I think you might like it too. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and come back for more shows to close the rest of the week. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.